Hello. Okay, I'm going to be analyzing case study 1 today. Question 1, apply each of the components of a communication competency to Hockaday responders. The first component of communication competency is process understanding. And in this case study's case, it has to do with understanding the goal, and I believe that Hockaday responders did in fact know what goal they had set in place for their company and what strategies or what steps needed to be taken to get to that goal. And they based their whole system plan around this. They changed from their current communication systems to virtual teams, for instance. And after this is interpersonal sensitivity. This was an area that I do believe that the company was lacking in. You could see when the crisis occurred and it was a bit of a stressful situation with the company. Team members and team leaders felt stressed out and they acted out or acted negatively, which reflected poorly upon them and kind of made it so that others didn't want to work with them, or the communication wasn't as successful as it could have been. And after this is communication skills, and this kind of ties into what I was just saying, as well as mentioned, the company changed its whole prior strategy and procedures, I would say, to become virtual teams because they felt that this was more appropriate for their company and to be successful. And finally, ethical responsibility. They work with people all around the world, and it did not seem to have any issues pop up because of it. So I would say that their ethical responsibility is strong. Moving on to question 2, how would you apply the concept of excellence in communication to the various situations in Hockaday responders? The text describes excellence in communication as being equivalent to excellence in organization. Specifically, section 1.4 states that communication systems are responsible for solving complex problems creatively. That's exactly what happened in this scenario. They implemented the strategies that they thought were creative enough to solve the problems, and thus creating success for the future. I mean, not for the future, for the company overall. Sorry. This new proper system could be put in place for future use and could just be built on for further success and could be adapted. And now that they have a sense of familiarity with it, to be more successful. Question 3, apply the concept of communication as constituting organizations to Hockaday responders. Okay. The concept of communication as constituting organizations, or CCO as described in the text, kind of brings out the self and social awareness problems or roles in situations, groups, and companies. And it also visits the idea of how, it discusses how organizations exercise their power. In this case, power was divided not equally. They had team leads who would guide others, but these roles did rotate, and they were split evenly and divided amongst, I believe there was 9 leaders for all the groups. And so, that kind of touches on the subject of CCO. And question 4, describe the major organizational challenges Hockaday responders faces based on discussion of individual and organizational challenges. All right, that's a big one. I would say the major issue going on right now is just they are, as discussed, implementing the new structure. So as of right now, it's just a matter of getting used to any flaws that are in place with the system that they haven't previously had to deal with because it is new, and just kind of some people were hesitant to start in the beginning, so just getting them on board and familiar and enjoying the new system is just a huge problem for the company at this time. And also, it's just they're going through a time of change. So it's understandable that there might be some issues going on, challenges that they're facing at this moment. And now for question 1 for chapter 2, apply the basic components of the functional approach to organizational communication to Hockaday responders. The functional approach kind of focuses on how and why communication works in an organization or a company. And it specifically looks at input, outputs, whether systems are open, they're closed, and how the communication systems work. And in this case, Hockaday has a very open communication system. If someone is needing help with a problem or to find a solution or anything, it is expected that their team members can be reached and they could discuss and brainstorm issues and reach a solution. The chain of responsibility is set in place. There's the CEO of the company. There's their I'm guessing advisor, manager. From then there's team leaders leading each divided group, and so it's a pretty set in stone system of how communication would need to flow if it was needed, if questions were needed to be asked, or if someone needed to be approached. Yeah. And question 2, describe Hockaday responders from the meaning-centered perspective. So for the meaning-centered perspective, organizing and decision-making are essential communication. I'm sorry. So this approach kind of sense-making combines action and I'm trying to read my notes, sorry. Sense-making combines action and interpretation. We'll come back to this one. Okay, so question 3, identifying which concepts from emerging perspectives make the most sense to you when thinking about Hockaday responders. And for me, this one kind of stuck out as critical theory of all the different topics kind of discussed for emerging perspectives. Critical theory, the central goal is to create a society or workplace free from domination where all members contribute to meet the necessary needs. And this is exactly what Hockaday does. It doesn't matter what your position is. If you need to be solving a situation and if you need to be communicating with one another, it is going to be done because they know that what is needed to be successful and they are willing to do it to be successful. Critical theory kind of talks about a lot more, but that was just a main key point of it that I thought really related to Hockaday's personal case. And question 4, how can you combine information in each of the 3 major perspectives in chapter 2 to best illustrate what has happened and what is happening at Hockaday responders? So to summarize, using all of these approaches and kind of the ideas from each, I could say that Hockaday, they recognizes the need for successful communication. They know that their company is not going to be successful or survive without it. Especially just the specific company that they rely solely on technology for cases of emergency, 911, ambulance, police, dispatch. So they understand that communication with one another and their clients especially is 100% the most crucial aspect of their entire company design. And also, they're really taking the time to reinvent and meet these needs by implementing new strategies and just working forward to the future. So I think that that's a great thing that they are doing. And for question 5, which single idea or concept from chapter 2 is the most meaningful to you for this case, and why is that? For me, I would say that this relates back to the first thing we talked about, the components of competency. For me, maybe it was just the easiest concept to understand, but I think that identifying each of these categories, the process understanding, interpersonal sensitivity, these are going to be aware or apparent in every single aspect of communication roles, like whether it's at work, personal lives, no matter what, these things need to be addressed and be able to be completed successfully. And so it's a great thing to look at for in case studies such as this, because it could kind of put into perspective why a company is successful and where they are lacking in their communication processes and how they could possibly do better. And I want to go back to that question 3. Oh yeah, so the emerging perspectives, a lot of them had to do with just the idea that organizing and decision making were essential for communication. And Hockaday responders definitely sees this because they created a very organized system by having direct contact, well, not direct contact, but they had a set way to communicate with one another that was organized. And the emerging perspectives also states that sense making combines action and interpretation. And action is what was taken. They recognized that new communication system needed to be made, and when the crisis occurred, like I said, they were starting to solve the solution within the hour that it occurred, and everyone was working from around the world. Everyone was on board to try to solve that situation right when it was occurring, and that kind of really ties into the approach right then and there. And yeah, I think that kind of covers all of the questions for this case study. Sorry about the little bit of disorganization. All right, thank you. Have a good night.